Superhero Academy podcast with your host,
All right,
Rusty.
welcome to the second episode of the Superhero Academy podcast. I've got with me here Dan Adams, a social entrepreneur that I met a little while ago. And he's up to some really, really interesting things that I think you guys want to hear about. And he's definitely a superhero who, who inspires me, and who really has taken on some really incredible projects that I think you guys need to hear more about. So welcome, Dan. How's it going?
Oh, thanks a lot for having me, Mark. I really appreciate it, man. You're quite the superhero yourself, dude. So our powers combined, man.
Yeah, well, thanks. So, for those who don't know, Dan recently is kind of kicking off this project called the Higher Purpose Project, right? And how about you go into that? How about you go into what the motivation from that is? Where does that come from in your past? What have you done in the last couple of years that has kind of led you to this? And then what the project is itself?
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. Basically, the Higher Purpose Project has kind of been like an evolving vision over the past 5 years. So I slowly started to realize in my own life that my perspectives were creating my realities in a lot of ways. And it was kind of tough because I led a pretty traditional life. You know, I came from a middle income family. Then I went to Catholic school, and I was basically told more or less what to do, and what was success, and I kind of went along with that for a little bit. And then I kind of felt this deep void. I was working in corporate America, and I was just like, oh my God, if I have to do another day of this, I'm gonna die. And I was making money. I was successful in the eyes of society, but deep down, I knew that I had a higher purpose. There was something else that I needed to do, and so I had this vision. I saw a documentary of a kid without arms and legs that was born without arms and legs that ended up winning 32 high school matches, wrestling matches. And I was like, man, this kid has an amazing mindset. What if we could utilize that mindset and collaborate on a pretty epic adventure, so we could really help people confront their own fears and their own perceived limitations to, kind of discover that power they have within. So I embarked upon this journey with a kid named Kyle Maynard. We decided that we wanted to climb Kilimanjaro in 2012. And so, over 9 months, we built a project called Mission Kilimanjaro. And we built Kyle, adaptive climbing system. We partnered with some amazing people like Eric Weinmeier, who's blind and summited Everest, and just all these amazing creators. And over 9 months, we raised 80 grand. We brought 2 veterans with us, and we reached the top of Kilimanjaro in January. So that project had a lot of success. It really, the message was, if you confront your fears and your perceived limitations, there's no limit to what you can create. And so we wanted to create that opening for people. And so the Higher Purpose Project basically was born out of that. And then through seeing the Valhalla movement kind of come about, I was so inspired by Valhalla and what Jordan and Mark were doing that I was like, man, we got to figure out a way to collaborate and bring in, conscious creators, people that have a passion for something, and they're kind of evoking that change in our world. So the Higher Purpose Project basically tailors people that are 25 to 35. Really, our demographic though currently, the current pilot is 23 to 55, so it's a pretty wide demographic. These are people that are kind of they kind of feel this void in their life. They're good at particular things. They're outside the box thinkers, but for whatever reason, they haven't had the courage to take those steps kind of outside the system, because we all know it's hard with our parents and our friends and all that stuff to kind of go outside the box to really do what we want to do. So I wanted to create a structure that would help those people with embarking upon the journey. So I partnered with Phil Drolet, who's the co-founder of the Higher Purpose Project, and he's the founder of A Feel Good Lifestyle. He's an adventurer, was born in Montreal, swimmer, just an amazing person. Jordan Lejeune, who obviously runs highexistence.com, and he's the co-founder with Mark here on the podcast. And then just a whole team of just amazing facilitators that have kind of consciously created their path. And our goal is to help people discover their passion, help them kind of dive within, and help them kind of build a life that's basically authentic to who they really are. And so we'll ask the big questions. We'll go on the adventure, and this project's going to benefit. A portion of the proceeds will benefit the Valhalla Movement, and we hope to continue to cultivate, conscious creators in our communities. And we also hope to bring some of these leaders into the Valhalla Movement to help you guys forward.
So you mentioned, first of all, you mentioned a whole lot of stuff, and that, wow, like, honestly, first of all, very humbling to think that, Valhalla had helped inspire this higher purpose project and something that you're doing in your life today. But even more than that, I think the bigger topic that you were kind of brushing on there is collaborating to help inspire people to take that first step, to take that step of, you mentioned for whatever reason, they're outside of the box thinkers. They're the type of people that are innovative and different, but at the same time they've been having this problem in trying to take that leap of faith, right? And I think there's this is a common theme that I see around even Valhalla and everything. The number of people that are interested in it, that have so much knowledge and so much power and talent, and yet they come to us and sometimes they're like, well, what do we do? Like, what is the first step, or how do I make it happen? And there's so many people who are lost in this realm of where to start. And so before I make you kind of go into more of the higher purpose project, how do you take your first step? Like, how do you decide to, like, you had this idea of higher purpose project, but at some point you had to commit to it. You had to say, hey, I'm doing this. And what was that first step? What's the first thing that you look for in trying to do something like that?
I think it was kind of like a series of steps, Mark. So in my life, I started looking back at all the things I succeeded at and all the things I failed at to see what the commonalities were. And what I kind of found was it was really my perception going into that event that would dictate my reality. So as I started to really understand and focus on the inner, kind of confronting my own fears on things, kind of confronting like my own limited perspectives on stuff, the world started to slowly change. And so I started to realize that there's an organization behind form. And it sounds like some out there type ridiculous concepts. But I started to realize that, the larger leaps that I took, the bigger visions I created, and the more fear that I confronted, that the universe would basically provide me with the resource when I needed it. And the crazy thing is everyone tries to plan everything out. I need to go back to school. I need to get, X education. I need to have a step-by-step process to make this happen. And really how you create things is by taking that first step, having the courage just to kind of throw yourself out there with kind of a beginner's mindset, and just evolving and being consistent and teaching yourself as you go. Because all the serendipitous things that have happened in my life, they've always been a result of the community, I've surrounded myself with, and my own mindset, So, athletics for me was the opener. So everyone has, a particular passion, whether it's music or acting or whatever it is you're passionate about. It's an opportunity to kind of dive within. And so through athletics, I started to realize the power of visualization. So I was really small in college. I played middle linebacker though. And when most people look at me, they're like, "Oh, that kid's a kicker. You can never play football." And I get the same stuff when I go in for auditions to play, athletes with, shows and film here in Atlanta. Guys are like, "There's no way that you play football. It's not believable." But when I was in college, I visualized everything that I wanted to accomplish, and I visualized how I would, how it would fit on certain plays. And so when I was a junior, I ended up leading the nation in unassisted tackles, and then I'm the current NCAA record holder for most unassisted tackles in the game. Wow. So I've accomplished things that very few people can grasp, and it's not I'm not stating that out of like a sense of arrogance or a sense of, oh, look what I did. It's a mindset, and so you can transition that power of visualization, and you can transition things that you cultivate, pursuing certain things. It's all universal. And the more and I think the greatest awakener too is when you deal with a tremendous amount of suffering, because that's what enables you to take the first step. It's kind of like a phoenix, like with a phoenix when it burns, and out of the ashes, out of this perceived self, arises this this I am presence, this energy that is not afraid of anything and is willing to try anything that it wants. And that's the way I kind of view my life. Like the awakener for me was when the girl I was dating at the time, I was working in corporate America. I was really unhappy with my path. And the girl I was dating at the time, left. I mean, she was on all types of prescription drugs, and she was a doctor, so it was really tough. And then my brother was committed to a hospital after graduating from UVA. He was committed to a hospital and was on heavy medication. And so, the only way I knew to get through to them was to, teach them, the power of mindset through action. And that's basically how it all started, just taking a leap.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think every great story always has an interesting beginning, and it always has this interesting kind of step in the hero's journey, kind of where you kind of have to abandon everything that you've ever learned to take this leap of faith. And I've talked about it at length with so many people, and how they did it and how they get to it. And I think there's different paths for everyone, right? I guess. Sometimes it's like a much slower process. Other people just jump off the cliff right away. I mean, they get an idea and they just run straight for the cliff. But I mean, I think, one of the things that people really need to start taking on is just doing it. Like, the worst, what's worse? Like, I feel like people forget to paint the risks on both sides of the coin, which is like, they see the risks of like, oh, if I jump off this cliff, I might not make as much money, or I might not be as happy, or I might not meet the right people, or I might fail. And that's really what they're saying. They're expressing their fears. But at the same time, if they just decide to not do the things that they want to do, well, isn't that pretty much the same thing? Like, this is always how I've seen it. It's like, oh, yeah, I mean, I'd love to be a teacher, for example, but at the same time, this job that I have right now, which has nothing to do with teaching and really doesn't fulfill me in any way, it pays my bills. And it's like, well, I understand that, you can't just jump into being a teacher the next day, but you can take steps today that can lead you there tomorrow. Like I always tell people, and you mentioned earlier, even it's a series of steps. It's not one step. But, one of the suggestions that I can ever give to somebody is do one thing a day, just one single thing a day, to be able to reach your end goal, right? To be able to reach, like, I'm here today, I want to be here tomorrow. Take one single step every single day, and you'll be there by the time, before you even know it, which is amazing. And so, that being said, I mean, I know you're the type of person who clearly believes this. I mean, clearly believes in the mindset abilities of that. And so, how about you go into depth about what the Higher Purpose Project is specifically, like what, the actual details surrounding it, and then how are you guys going to try and motivate these people to take that first step?
Absolutely. So basically, over the course of my path, I've basically experimented with everything, and applied it to my direct experiences. Because one of the things I had difficulty with in school is you have all these teachers that try to tell you things, but they never embody it. They never try it. So, just teaching me things out of textbooks, I didn't understand it. And so for me to have any type of authentic connection and to have any type of deep impact, I basically spent extensive amounts of time just kind of looking within myself and trying different things. So, basically I've really come to believe in every aspect of the hero's journey. One of the biggest influences in my life is Joseph Campbell. And for those that aren't familiar with the hero's journey or the monomyth, it's basically this formula. It's evident in all myths, all religions. It's a universal concept. And it sounds, for people that aren't aware of it or haven't heard of it, it's going to sound a little crazy, and it's not going to sound believable. But the thing is the more that you kind of go into it and the more that you kind of understand how to apply this formula to your life, it's amazing. And it's the reason why that I'm in film, I'm in movies, is because I know that people don't read. And the most powerful medium now, the modern mythology of our time, is film, because they can deliver metaphor. So you look at Superman, the new Superman with Zack Snyder, you look at Dark Knight, they're taking those universal concepts that were brought up by Joseph Campbell. And George Lucas was actually inspired by Joseph Campbell, and that's what set up the storyline for Star Wars. And so regardless of where you grew up, regardless of your experiences in life as a human being, we all connect to certain things, and that the hero's formula is something that we all connect with, regardless if we're male or female, regardless if we're from Tanzania or from the United States. It's something we can all connect with.
So how about you walk us through that hero's journey? I know people who are watching
Yeah,
this are going to be like, okay, what the hell is the hero's journey? What are the steps here? How do
yeah,
you walk
yeah.
us through before you get to the higher purpose? I know I asked you that, but
Absolutely. So there's, it's kind of like a process. Campbell basically outlines 12 steps. He wrote a book called A Hero with a Thousand Faces, and he kind of came up with this formula. So he looked at, all the religions. He looked at the Upanishads. He looked at the Bible. He looked at the Torah. He looked at Greek myths, and he looked for commonalities between all of them. And what he realized is that there was this universal truth behind all of them. So almost like Carl Jung's human archetypes, meaning that we're all kind of connected to these unconscious symbols. And so with Campbell, the process it's basically embodied best if you watch The Matrix. It's an exact following of the hero's journey, and so is Star Wars. And filmmakers make a conscious decision to follow that storyline because they know that it will have an impact. So some of the greatest movies that exist in our culture today they follow the formula almost exactly. So Shawshank Redemption, Legends of the Fall, just a lot of movies that you kind of connect with and I connect with. It follows it. So basically, how the formula goes. So you remember in The Matrix, there's a call. So we all receive this call at some point in our lives where we have this like little itch to do something, and it could be something really small. It could be like finger painting. It could be like like I'm gonna go knit or something. And you can't really explain it, but you just feel this call to do it. And the key is that you answer the call. And the problem is with our current society is most people don't answer the call, and so they live wasteland lives. And so I think it's really when people don't follow their passions in life, and when they follow the perspectives of their parents, and they follow the perspectives of the traditional society, their life is barren. They have no energy. They're basically dead behind their eyes in a lot of ways. And in corporate America, everyone kind of plays a role. It's these really inauthentic relationships that you have with one another, and young people, they feel it, they can see it, but it's the older members of our society that are so they're so kind of caught up in their role, and they try to dictate to the younger generations, oh, this is how it is, this is how it's always going to be, and it's not true, because our society is in a state of transition. So basically with Hero's Journey, we all receive a call, and then we basically go into this refusal of the call. So in the Matrix, it's basically when Morpheus is kind of telling him what he needs to do. So that's kind of like the inner knower, kind of telling you where you need to go. And then you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna die if I do this. If I do this, I will die, and there's no way that I can kind of go into the unknown. And so basically, Neo goes, doesn't do his fear, and he goes back in, and the agents take him and they put that thing in him. So that's the stage that most people are stuck in. They actually never answer the call, so they live a life, making money, seeking stability, which is the worst thing that you could do in this life, because you seek stability, it's not stable at all. So
do you
it's
think do you
really
think that
contradictory.
sorry to cut you off. Do you think that people can get more than one call?
Oh, absolutely. As far as what happens is, so people are like, oh, well, what if I don't like that? Or what if that's not what I'm meant to do? Well, the thing is by just taking the step, things start to appear to you. So, for example, like say you start finger painting.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this calling to go finger painting, and then you start doing it. Then all of a sudden, this new realization comes to you, or this new person contacts you through something. So there's always like this new realization. So by kind of following the unconscious, getting outside of your head,
Mm-hmm.
because so many people are so mind heavy with everything. Their thoughts control everything. They can't quiet anything down in their head. So there's no opening for creativity. So the answer and the solution can't come. So when you can kind of create that, when you can be in that flow, doing something you love, that's when like this like universal knowledge kind of comes to you in certain ways. And it sounds like out there la la type of things, but I can assure you from my own experiences that it is the truth. And if you allow it to come and you kind of, answer those like small little callings, it all starts to connect. It's like Steve Jobs connect the dots. You can't see the picture moving forward, but you can see it going back. So the key is just to get really comfortable in the darkness, get really comfortable in the unknown, then everything starts coming to you. You don't have to suffer. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Now, okay, so you've got the call, then you've got the rejection of the call. What's next? What happens next in the Matrix? I mean, I know, but let's go through it. Let's go through
it. You have the refusal of the call, and then you start to kind of believe that you can do it. You start to kind of feel like, oh, like I refused that call, and it still is in you, and it's like you have to get it out of you. It's like in the Matrix of visually, it's represented by that thing inside of him, right? So this thing is going all inside of him, and he can't stop it, and he's like, what is going on, And that's what happens, So it stays within you, and until you release it, it's in your body, And so if you don't release it, then it has negative effects on you. So there's another opportunity for you to answer it. So and when you do answer it, basically you come up against the first obstacle. So it's basically the first little wall. And what I'll do is I'll bring up the whole little process. I wrote this little article on it, and I'll just kind of walk everyone through it. I mean, the process is a little bit different for each person, but it's pretty universal. Yeah. So you come to the first threshold. So that's like the first obstacle.
And I'll link people, by the way. Anybody who's watching this, I'll link it in the description so you guys can follow along as he's talking.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's you come to the first threshold. So that's kind of like your first test. So you've taken this step to bring this vision to life, and then you come up with like the first obstacle, like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. You start kind of second guessing yourself. You're on your path, but you're just like, oh, I just don't know. So you come into the first threshold, and usually what happens in between the refusal of the call and that first threshold is you meet a mentor. So you meet someone that just immediately kind of inspires you. They it could be someone in your life that empowers you to follow your calling in certain ways, or is like an aid for providing the resources for you to embark upon the journey. So that always happens, because if you visualize what you want, you'll attract the right type of people to your life. So basically it goes into, meeting with a mentor, then the crossing of the first threshold. And then once you kind of go into that crossing of the first threshold, you enter this stage, it's called testing of the allies and the enemies. So you're starting to kind of realize, like, who has the it, who has like that inner knowledge, who is the creator, and who are basically like the people that are run by a program. So most people in their lives, they're run by a program, meaning they're not conscious of their perspectives, and they're caught in the same cycle again and again and again and again. So you can see it a lot in like unconscious relationships, so people are like, why do I always attract this dickhead guy, because in their head, that's what they think, that's their value. They think that that's all they're worth. And so until they come to a level of acceptance with it, until they can kind of deal with their own internal battles within, they keep on attracting the same type of people. And it's the same thing with your career. You're going to accomplish what you think you can accomplish. If you believe in it, you can accomplish it. Well, most people think that you can't make money outside of a traditional structure. You can't make money outside of corporate America. And so that's their reality. Every time they try to go outside of doing their 9-to-5 job, they're just like, I don't know how I can make ends meet, because it's their perspective, it's their program. So start to realize who has this light, who is a creator, and then when you start to see who is a creator, who has that glow, you start studying what it is that enables that person to create. How do they do it? And so the more people that you can kind of surround yourself with that are building creative paths, you look at what they're doing and you model after them. So you take some of the aspects of their process and you make it your own, but you throw in your own authentic twist to it that is authentic to you and authentic to your journey. And most young people, that's one of the biggest things. Like, they don't feel that they can provide value to people, so they don't reach out. Well, here's the amazing thing about our world. is you can reach out to anyone in the world. When I read books, I basically just reach out to the author and then I just talk to them about it. If I want to meet someone, like I loved Legends of the Fall when I was a kid, and I always envisioned meeting Susanna. Well, I auditioned for a part with, the actress Julie Armand, who plays Susanna, and I got it. And so I got to meet Susanna. I had lunch with her. We talked about Legends of the Fall. It's whatever you want to do. And you guys have done that with Charles Eisenstein, who is a legendary thinker and who's going to be, I believe, the genius of our age. That's the thing. And if people can understand that, I can reach anyone in the world. I have the resources now to do whatever I want to do, to create whatever I want to create. It creates a huge paradigm shift within people. So after the test of the allies, you started to see how things are working, and so all of a sudden, the harness starts to come off, and it's like the full preparation for like the leap of faith. So like, I love movies. So in Indiana Jones, I always picture the leap of faith, like Temple of Doom, or not Temple of Doom, but the Last Ark.
Yeah.
When he's like, dude, there's no bridge right here. This is just a straight abyss into nothing, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I have faith that somehow I'm going to get across. And so he puts his foot out, and he lands on this bridge he didn't even see, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a path that leads him to the Grail. Mm-hmm. And the Grail is metaphorical for the inner. Mm-hmm. It's the inner light. So you have to understand, and the other thing that's so powerful about the hero's journey in Joseph Campbell is he understood the power of metaphor. So the problem with a lot of mainstream religion is it gets so caught up in the literal facts. It gets so caught up in the literal dates and, the Ark and the Holy Grail, the literal object. It's a metaphor, and if you understand the metaphor, that's what elevates your consciousness. Mm-hmm. Like in the Grail story with King Arthur, you have the great thing about the story is the metaphor is, here are all these amazing heroes, these knights, and before they could eat dinner, in the at the round table, and it's a round table, so everyone's mm-hmm. equal, mm-hmm. And before they could eat dinner, they would have to go on an adventure. And the thing about going on an adventure in the group is each person had to go into the deepest, darkest part of the forest on their own, because they felt that if they went as a group, that it would be a dishonor. And so even though they're collaborating, it's each person's responsibility to deal with their own internal divide, to deal with their own insecurities, mm-hmm. Own fears, because that's what enables wonderful collaborations to come about, because everyone emits the same light. Mm-hmm. That's what's so powerful about it. So goes into preparation, leap of faith, and then here's the ordeal.
I just want to say, right before you get into that one, I really had this thought that you were talking about metaphors, and you were talking about how it influences religion. But there's people who listen to this podcast, I'm sure, have heard of the New World Order, or they've heard of Illuminati and all these things. And it's not just, metaphors are everywhere. It's amazing how even our associations to brands and our associations to certain things that we don't really realize all have this incredible impact. Like symbolism and all this stuff. Like, I don't even need to tell you what the Golden Arches is. You know what I mean? Yeah. I say it and you know. And then you feel this feeling, and you kind of you visualize it, and you see it, and you see their food. And like in a fraction of a second, all those things just started connecting back through one symbol. It's amazing the power that symbols can really hold. You say swastika, everyone knows what you're talking about, and then boom, a whole series of images comes out. So it's amazing how...
But the easy thing is, though, it's all perception, right? So with a swastika in the Indian culture, it's a sign of peace. Yeah. You'll see it all over the East.
Yeah, and it's a sun symbol, too.
Something different.
Yeah.
So it's funny. It's funny how, your perception of that symbol it's really interesting.
Yeah, I've read this book. I literally have this book that explains, like, all the different symbols that you might see around the world. It clearly doesn't have every single symbol, but it's a very thick book, like, seriously thick, and it really explains, like, this deeper meaning of all these symbols. And it's amazing how, yes, any symbol can have, first of all, numerous meanings, but it really has the meaning that you give it as well. Like some people have lucky charms, or some people have these random patterns in their head, like, oh, they have to wake up and put their right foot down on the ground first, so they're going to have a good day. to wake up on the right foot, so to speak, or whatever it is. But I mean, all those things have the power that you give them, and that's kind of what I wanted to point out. That if you empower not only yourself, when we were talking about empowering yourself, but if you could empower anything that you have around you, you know, like example, I empower this hourglass all the time and staying focused and doing the things that I want to do. If you take an intent and not only embody it within yourself, which sometimes your own intentions might stray, but put it into something else, into a symbol or into a charm or into some kind of relic or anything that it really is, you can use that to help benefit you. And that's just something I wanted to point out on,
absolutely.
on the
I mean, just
journey.
look at the placebo effect, you know?
Yeah.
When people believe that they're going to be healed, you know, they're given, you know, a pill that's full of sugar, they heal themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's so important to realize, you know, just the power of your perception in so many different ways. And, you know, I can say that it's really important in this life. So this is probably the biggest life lesson that I've learned so far, is the world in a lot of ways is meant to frustrate you, because it doesn't want you to identify with anything lesser than what you truly are. So the problem with dreams sometimes and goal seeking is we get identified with the external, you know, so we get identified with the pursuit, we get identified with the things we've accomplished, and then there's like this suffering, you know, because we're holding to something that's an illusion. We've created it, you know, we're something far greater than that. And so once you kind of understand that and you're just free and you just let things come to you and you create, and there's no sense of ego associated with like, this is me, everything comes to you so much easier, and there's no suffering, because all suffering is when you cling to things that you shouldn't be clinging to, because the world is always in a state of transition. It's always in a state of change. And so everyone tries to arrange the structures in like this perfect order, like, oh, my finances are great, my health is great, you know, everything is great in my life. And then all of a sudden they realize, oh no, like there's a little issue with my finances now. It's not all perfect. And so they hold to these things. And, you know, for the more success, when you experience more success in your life, you're also going to experience more failure, because it's the equalizer. It's just like in sports. When you experience like a tremendous victory and you're like, oh, you know, it's so amazing. Then the next day, it's like this huge downer. It's like, what? You know?
What's a fleeting thing?
It's the natural play of the world, because it doesn't want you to identify with those things. It wants you to enjoy them, you know, but it also wants to prepare you for transition and evolution. And, you know, the age that we're in now, all of our systems are changing. So all of the political structures, all of the financial structures, everything that has existed in, you know, industrial times that have, you know, proved to be successful, they're no longer successful. So all of, you know, our entire focus moving forward is based upon, you know, an age of reunion, which Eisenstein talks about, where it's about building authentic connections, building authentic collaborations between people, and creating amazing experiences for people to grasp who they are. You know, not selling products, not, you know, categorizing everything into financial transactions, really focusing on the deeper and connecting, you know, that deeper, because we're all part of the same. We're each teaching each other lessons,
so,
you know?
So there's a lot of people who would completely agree with you on that. I mean, I think a lot of people would be like, yeah, I feel the world's going to change. You know, a lot of people were waiting. They were saying it was 2012, or that we're shifting and that it's going in that direction. And I agree. I mean, I totally agree. But do you really think it's going to change? Like, is there a part of you that doubts that says, shit, this, like, you know, financial system is fucked, but at the same time, is it ever going to change? You know, corporate America is wrecking our world, or wrecking the resources of the world, but is it ever really going to change? Because a lot of people, and this is the truth, a lot of people, although they feel it inside of them, they deny it. They just completely say, no, it's never going to change, and it's just easier to believe, I guess, that it just won't change, and that things will be like this forever. You know, my mom and my dad say this all the time. You know, they call me a doomsdayer, my parents, sometimes. And I find that so ironic, because I'm literally the polar opposite of a doomsdayer. I'm the most hopeful person. I wouldn't have tried to start Valhalla if I completely believed in doomsday scenarios. But they call me a doomsdayer in the sense that they call me almost a pessimist, in the sense that they're like, no, these wars and these financial problems and high, whatever, the raping of natural resources has existed forever. And what do you think? Why do you think it's ever going to change? And I find it funny because, well, I mean, clearly change does happen, right? I mean, 100 years ago was not the way where we are today. So this change does take place, and even our financial system, even though it's based on some of the same principles, it does move, and the resources that we use do change. So how quickly and how realistically do you think that things will shift? And do you think it will be a radical shift? Like, will we be completely different in by the time we're 50 years old, for example?
I think it's so. I think the change has already begun,
Mm-hmm.
but people haven't necessarily because it all depends on your level of awareness with it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so 2012, the problem with mainstream media and our culture is what it wants to do is create a sense of fear around everything. So when 2012 hit, it's like, oh, here's the end of the world. Everything's going to end, and these horrible things are going to happen. Things are going to explode, and people are going to die. But really, what the Mayans were predicting was an elevation of consciousness. So we're entering into a time of instant manifestation that is basically it's basically foreshadowed by technology. So if you look at technology, look how fast things are moving.
Mm-hmm.
People can come up with an idea, and basically in like a couple days, they can bring that idea to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine, I mean, just put yourself back 200 years with the founders of our country. So setting up the Constitution where they risked treason against a large governmental power to stand for what they believed in. They basically had to ride horses to communicate with one another, and they came up with one of the greatest documents that have ever existed in time. Well, now we have these resources where we're talking online to each other via a camera phone, and you can talk to anyone in the world. So we have all the resources now. We have all the tools to evolve our world, and technology, for the most part, it's not the defining factor of our culture. There's something far greater, within us than just getting so caught up in technology and monetizing things. And it's something that Eisenstein really does a good job kind of describing. So with a lot of people that are like, oh, this is the way things have been. They're never going to change. Well, with those type of people, yeah, I mean, you have to be the change in the world. You have to be the change that you wish to see. So if you want something to change, you have to take a fundamental step to do so. And I think what happens to so many people, and this is what happens in Hero's Journey too, is they automatically start thinking of all the steps they're going to have to take to get to their final goal rather than just taking the first step,
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, oh, well, I'll have to do like this, and I could lose my job, and and then they don't do anything. They just sit there and they paralyze themselves, and then they just, it's this complete paralysis. So the key is not to get so caught up in the 10,000 steps, is to focus on the one that you're taking. And so that's what the Higher Purpose Project is focused on. We are focused on building presence in people because that is the most important thing. In this life, it doesn't matter what you accomplish. It doesn't matter the external things that you succeed at. All that matters is your level of presence and your level of awareness that you're going to build through confronting your own fears and your own limitations. So the reason I do all these amazing things is because I want to conquer any type of fear that I have, and I want to be in control of my perceptions. And I want to get outside of my mind. I want to be in a state of flow where I can be, just aware and just enjoy and just spread love. And that's what you need to teach people. It's not, they don't need to focus on, all the things all the fruit of their labor. They just need to focus on how they're doing it. That awareness, that presence. Because if they do that, if they dive within, everything else will fall into place. And it seems crazy. And when you do it, you're like, I'm going to die. But if you do it, I can promise you that you will start to see, the magic of our world, and you will start to see how things operate.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, you went right where I was trying to go with that. That's perfect. No, I mean, absolutely. It all starts within. It all starts within and ends within. Really, it kind of it externalizes, and we see the manifestation of people's dreams, and then
Yeah,
we get caught up on that. What we get caught up on is that some of their dreams, like technology, is a gauge of like. I feel like a lot of people in society kind of use technology to gauge how advanced we are, like how successful the human race is based
Right.
on how advanced we are technologically. But
Right.
isn't it funny that technology, and what they're not seeing is they're saying technology, but what they're not seeing is the knowledge behind technology. It's not about
Right.
technology itself. It's not about the computer or the laptop or whatever, like the camera or whatever it is. It's about the things that we learned in behind that and what led us to those things. You know,
Right.
and you mentioned presence and being in the moment and kind of living and flowing through that. I mean, I don't think that Steve Jobs, the day he started Apple or anybody, any big successful, corporate uh, giant, or at this point even Mark Zuckerberg or whoever it is, they didn't think about where this product was going later down the road. I mean, I think they all had an idea that it would be bigger and it would grow and that they wanted it to grow, of course, but they didn't start thinking about, oh man, this will one day be a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and it's going to be an overwhelming thing, I don't even know how I could begin to start getting from here where I am today to here. Well, what they really thought about is exactly, they thought about how they were here and then maybe getting to here, and then over time they'll slowly but surely move, and then eventually they ended up there. They didn't always have to see the end goal. Like, even people always think about, like, oh, how did you get the idea for Valhalla? And I'm like, well, it wasn't just this one moment. It wasn't just this one, like, oh, I sat in the bathtub and then all of a sudden a light bulb went off in my head and I yelled out Eureka or something. It was a series of signs and things, and we're, trying to bring it back to the hero's journey. It was a series of things and calls to action that I just could no longer ignore, and then slowly but surely you take that on, and you take that on, in a profound way, not only because the fear of not only because you feel like you have to, but it's also because at some point the fear starts stacking up on the other side of things, which is I fear more that I would have to work in a corporate America job than I fear the failure of ever having problems with Valhalla. Like, I would die to work at a desk and sit there and do things for other people that didn't really matter to me versus doing things that mattered to at least my own projects and the collective projects, because it's not, Valhalla is the idea is to be a collective project and to empower as many people as possible, and that's what the Higher Purpose Project seems to be all about as well.
And the thing is so what we're trying to do is we're trying to confront the current educational system and the current structures that are in place, because the current structures in place, they're just creating slaves. And, I hate to say it, but the way that our government is currently, and the way that our society operates, it doesn't really want leaders. It'll pretend, they'll have all these powerful sayings with fucking car commercials and, ridiculous stuff. And, it doesn't want you to realize who you are. It doesn't want you to be a creator, because then you're not a mere consumer, and that's what our society is based upon, is consumerism.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we want to change. We want to show you that deep inside you have the power to create the life that you want. And it has nothing to do with what you have, because it's what you are that's the most important aspect. And so, we're helping people kind of get rid of that old program that extended in education. We all went through the educational system through extensive periods of time. And, in the educational system, you're told, oh, you have to have all of these resources to do this, and you have to have this education. You have to spend $150,000 to make it in the world. And it's complete ridiculousness, And so we're entering a period now where, you have access to all this information. Whatever you want to learn, you can learn. It's all about, self-teaching yourself and making sure that you're following what you love, because then you can find the resources and you can get what you need to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're helping people kind of overcome that limited mindset that's given to us by our society and by our government. And we're going to confront. I mean, my goal is to create a group of conscious creators that basically confront our government, our entitlement programs. I don't know if anyone's ever read Atlas Shrugged. I'm not a huge fan of all aspects of Ayn Rand's teachings, because I think she fell short on certain aspects of relating to human beings. But I do believe in, being accountable for our lives. I do believe in the John Gold Society, where you have a system of creators that, basically must confront an unconscious system to save society. And I think that's, kind of the period that we're entering. And it's our responsibility as young generations to rebuild what's been broken. We had an opportunity, like 20 or 30 years ago to do it, and we delayed it. We got caught up in all this ridiculousness.
Well, I think we didn't have the technology. We just
Yeah.
didn't have the technology to be able to create the connections that we needed in the fast-moving communication for people to believe that this was actually working around the world. So the hippie movement, like a hippie in, let's say, the West Coast, didn't know that there was a hippie in the East Coast doing the exact same thing, thinking the exact same thing. Whereas today, we do know that. You know what I mean? Like today, the technology allows us to be able to spread these things so much faster.
Right.
And allows us to be true. Now, at the same time, technology has its downfall. It's a distraction, right? If we didn't have all the internet is filled with things that distract us as well. But it's it's the few people that believe that they could change the world that actually do. There's that quote, and
it's always the thing that's great to understand too, Mark. As far as all the greatest creators, there was always a sense of darkness that they encountered. There's a great book. It's called A Touch of Madness. And if you look into the lives of every great creator that's just done wonderful things for humanity, almost every single one of them came to a point in their life where they almost took it, where they almost committed suicide. If you look at Martin Luther King, if you look at Gandhi, if you look at Theodore Roosevelt, he lost his wife and his mother on the same day, Valentine's Day, and he almost ended his life. Martin Luther King went through some real difficult times, but through going through that darkness, they realized their light, and they had a tremendous impact because they had a faith, in how the world operates, and they were willing to go into that unknown as much as possible to share that light with people.
Absolutely. So, what was the next step? Let's get back to the hero's journey because I know people want to.
The next step is the ordeal. So you've embarked upon the journey. So for us, with Mission Kilimanjaro, we had to kind of confront all these like little thresholds. Initially the guy that we had lied to us, and he told us that he had summited K2 and done all these amazing things, and we realized through hiking with him that he was lying to us. So that was one of our deals that we had to deal with. So then we got to Africa, and that was the beginning of the ordeal. We see this huge mountain in front of us, and we're like, oh man, this is gonna be pretty ridiculous, man. Like I hope we can do this. And so you go in, you just like, all right, I'm gonna do it, And so you start climbing. You start climbing up that mountain, which in that project was a metaphor. Even though we were actually climbing a mountain, what we wanted people to understand was that was a metaphor for their life. So whatever goal that they want to accomplish, whatever they have to start climbing. And to reach the top, you have to kind of go through ups and downs of an ascent. So, basically with facing fear, you have to let go of everything that you formerly were, all identity. So when I was leaving corporate America, when people asked me what I did for a living, I was like, I don't do anything right now. I set up this company called Athletic Capital. This is what I want to do. And a lot of people laughed at me, I love my parents, but when I told my parents that I wasn't going to take a quadruple amputee to the top of Kilimanjaro, and I was going to build a $20,000 initiative for a coach that was retiring, they thought I was crazy, And you have to understand that when people oppose you, it's not you, it's their own fears. They're projecting their own fears on you because their perspectives create their realities. So what you can do by believing in what you want to do and focusing on within you, you can create a paradigm shift because people, they simply act as a mirror in your own life, So rather than looking to people as things outside of you, just look at it as like a spiritual practice. So every person that you come across, if you have a tendency to judge someone, look within yourself and be like, what is it that I fear within myself that I'm judging in that person?
It's amazing.
It transforms your world when you do that.
Absolutely.
And when you start to do that, so you go into the unknown and you start to like get the courage. You're like, man, like this is working. Like things are kind of figuring itself out. And so once you realize that, you have the beginnings. It's the victor's reward. So you're starting to have this gained sense of confidence. You've gotten the bounties for embarking upon the journey. You're starting to get rewarded. You're slowly starting to get rewarded. And then it's the road back. And so whenever a hero goes out into the unknown, the hero's responsibility is to bring back the light, is to bring back the elixir into the society. And so in the road back, it's difficult because sometimes people don't always like pioneers. They like to sit in their own perspectives and their own paradigms. And if you contradict who they are or who they're identified with, people. So some people you'll heal, some people you won't. Everyone's on a different path, on a different level of awareness. Everyone has lessons to learn in this life. So then there's the road back, and then in Campbell's monomyth, there's a thing called the resurrection. So when you go into this, there's one last obstacle where you have to lose everything. So on the road back, it's the test. Are you really a hero? Do you really have what it takes within? Or are you identified with the bounty that you just received? So the final test is usually an obstacle. For me, I got back from Kilimanjaro. I started working for IMG, the company I always wanted to work for, building large-scale experiences all around the world. And I was staying at the Venetian, doing all these things, but I found that I was still working for corporations, so I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. So I got in this really bad car accident right outside where I was working, and it was like this complete awakening. Like I was like, all right, I'm not supposed to be doing this, and so it was just kind of an opportunity to realize Maya, the illusion I was in, and recenter my energy. And so I had to lose everything. Like I rode a bike for like a month because my insurance lapsed coming back from Africa. So I had all of these expenses, and so I was like, I'm just going to make this work. It'll figure itself out. So I was able to negotiate with basically a collections agency. I took like an $8,000 bill down to 3, and I rode my bike for like 2 months, to and from work, and it enabled me to become more present, just with everything, because I was in nature. I wasn't driving my car. I was more present with everything going on because I had to be.
And you have a serious respect for distances.
Yeah, man, dude, that definitely. And you're always thinking. It's so funny because your whole thought process changes. Like how am I going to carry all this stuff on my bike?
Yeah.
How am I going to get from A to B? If I don't want to be sweaty with meeting these people, how do I do that? How can I bring a change of clothes? Where can I shower? Where can I work out? And dude, it's a systematic process, but you figure it out. Dude, this isn't that bad. And I went on a similar experiment. I was definitely afraid of being homeless. I was like, if I lose everything, I could be homeless and live on the street. So what I did is for 2 months, I lived out of my car.
Wow.
And so I lived out of my car.
Completely voluntarily.
Yeah, and dude, what I realized, it was so easy, man. Like I had like this process where I would spend all my time like in coffee shops, like doing work, using wireless. And then at night, like I would just sleep at like gas stations. I would put my seat would fold all the way back to like 180, and I would just sleep in the car, and like nobody bothered me. It was great, and I didn't have a problem sleeping or anything. And so it helped me kind of deal with that, because even though I had money and I didn't need to do that, it helped me with that fear. So I don't fear that anymore. Like I don't fear loss of everything because I know I can always make it work regardless of what situation I'm in. Yeah. So when I travel, I'm completely free, man. I just let things come to me. I don't try to like plan everything. I try to have like somewhat of a structure and a vision, but I just go into it and let it happen.
Yeah, that's happened to me too. So, now that I think about it, like I was trying to figure out if I had ever like been homeless, like had a situation where I'm like really had nowhere to stay. And like in my travels when I went to Europe, I remember this one time where basically I went to go to the giant tomato fight festival, and world's biggest tomato fight. It was absolutely incredible. But when I got there, everyone was staying at this other town that was like an hour away, and they were taking the train in that morning. And I just went straight to the town because I didn't know. I didn't know there wasn't places to stay there, or that it was a small town. So I showed up, and I'm looking for like a hostel or whatever, and there's none. And I was like, shit, like what am I going to do tonight? Like where am I going to sleep? And so I ended up having to sleep for like 2 or 3 nights in a row, 2 or 3 nights that I ended up sleeping on like this castle in this town on the ground, literally like complete cement. There was no grass patches anywhere. I couldn't believe it. Seriously, I spent all day looking for a grass patch, and I could not find one of them. It was unbelievable. It was like this one town that had no grass anywhere. So I ended up sleeping on the cement for 2-3 nights. And then even at that, there was numerous nights that I slept in the Madrid airport. And it's like, you get that sense of feeling that like, this is as bad as it could possibly get. Like, I only have a backpack. Yes, I had money, so that was okay. I guess I could have been worse without money and without like knowing that I can go somewhere. But at the same time, sleeping on the ground, like, that's as bad as it ever can possibly get, and I can still find a level of comfort in that. And I think, you could be comfortable anywhere. You can be comfortable anywhere. You have to just find that. You have to get out of your comfort zone and then realize how comfortable anything can be.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's a presence, and by being in that state, like, you can put your attention on the people that you're around, and you're not thinking about, oh my God, if this happens, and you get caught up in the past or the future.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't believe I'm going to share this story, but like I like nice places. I like art and a lot, and I've always figured out like the back door of systems. So. Because I don't really have fear with certain things. If I know it doesn't hurt society and it doesn't hurt anyone, like, I don't have a problem doing it. So I was staying in I was right around the St. Regis, and I realized at the St. Regis that there's an office that has a door. So it's an office with 2 different doors in it, and I was like, man, the St. Regis is like ultra expensive. I really don't want to pay for hotel rooms here, but there's really not a hotel in close proximity to where I'm going to be going to the seminar. And so basically for 3 nights, like, I slept in the office. Like, I shut the door, and I had my own little room. That's and awesome. Everyone thought I was like a resident within the St. Regis. So, and the thing is it's like a Jedi mind trick. If you really believe, if you act like you should be there and you really believe that you should be there, people just presume that you should be. And you're like, yeah.
I do the same with the movies. I do the exact same thing with the movies. There's this one movie theater. It's called. I hope Guzzo's not watching this because I actually do work for them and I film for them. But the point is, every time I go to the Guzzo theater, my buddy who used to work there, who will remain anonymous. He used to let us in all the time. We would have like private screenings and stuff at this movie theater. And then when he stopped working there, I couldn't bear paying for the movies anymore. It's like I had spent like 3 or 4 years never paying for movies, always just going when my buddy was there.
Right.
And so at some point I just started walking right in. Like, there's a guy who rips your ticket, and I would just be like, he'd be like, hey, and he would like put his hand out for the ticket, and I'd be like, and I would just walk right by him, like just strut right in. Or every time I would just come up with a different excuse. Oh, I'm with those people, they have my ticket, or just whatever. But like, just coming in with that full confidence of being able to do it. And I've seen other people try it, right? Like, they've seen me do it, so then I see them go at it. But because they don't really believe it, like, because they doubt it, they stop themselves, really.
Yeah,
that's the most interesting thing.
They pick up on energies, so it's like that they'll pick up on that divide within yourself.
Yeah, but it wasn't even
a subconscious thing.
Exactly, but it wasn't even the kid that was going to solve it.
It's crazy. I mean, but I think with everything. Yeah, I mean, I think with everything too, I've gotten a lot better because I think there's a lot of opportunities where you can take advantage of the system, and there's certain things that I think are you have to operate at your highest purpose, because if it hurts your perspective in any way, like for me, for example, I've always been very conscious about making sure I pay for everything that I want and stuff like that, because I want to have that money perspective that I can have whatever I want whenever I want.
Of course.
And if I'm not caught up in things, so I'm never worried about the flow of money. I know it'll come, and I'll always reward creators. Just the problems I have sometimes is when I enter unconscious systems like St. Regis that prey on corporate employees and charge ridiculous rates to go to their, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And to me, like, that structure is like will be slowly falling in certain ways because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And so I don't have problems, kind of figuring out backdoors in those systems, because to me it's all based off illusion.
Mm-hmm. And so back to the hero's journey. There's the resurrection, which we talked about.
Yeah.
And then
the final step, which is the greatest step of all. And this is what this is what our two initiatives are focused on. It's called the Return of the Elixir, Saving the Society. So when you go into the unknown and you take part in the hero's journey, there's a light within you that you start to uncover, and it's the elixir, meaning you carry this light that you can share with other people. That's healing, and as far as in different religions, it's the avatar, So Christ is an avatar. There's truth in Christianity. There's truth in Buddhism. There's truth in Hinduism. There's truth in all religions, and it's in Christ as far as he was resurrected metaphorically, and through that resurrection, he presents this light to people, an opportunity for them to realize who they are within, and this is the primary problem with our current institutionalized religions, is they focus on God being outside of you. It's within you, right? And so the West doesn't understand the East, because the East, is focused on, the God within. If you look at the Gospel of Thomas, it focuses on God within. But the church doesn't like that, because, if they focus on the God within, why do they need a church? And so they can't take advantage of the masses,
Yeah, I guess the East still has churches too. They're not they're different, but they still go to the same, they still have power, but not the same type of power as the West, I think.
Right, exactly. So it's just, it's, so once you have this elixir, which is, this inner awareness, it's a metaphor for the inner awareness. Your goal is to help other people, empower them and to understand who they are beyond form, and to have them be accountable for their lives. So it's transforming people from a victim mindset to a creator mindset. Like if you look in the Christ parables, all Christ did was he made people believe that they were healed. So in some of the parables, he would have people that were suffering from different afflictions, and they would touch his cloak, and he'd be like, do you believe you're healed? And the person would be like, yes, I believe I'm healed. And so they would heal themselves. It was their own perceptions in a lot of ways. And so we can do that daily with our interactions. So once you kind of understand that this world is always changing, that you can create whatever you want, you empower other people to create visions. And that's so important, because if you can empower a society of people, a society of leaders to build visions and bring dreams to reality and be accountable for their lives, just imagine what can happen in our world. And that's Valhalla. Valhalla is about being the change in society. It's about young people standing up for what they believe in, creating self-sustaining initiatives that give them an understanding of how to grow food, how to be accountable for their path, how to get outside of the system, and then to bring visions to reality within that space, to do things within the community, to really create this light with everyone. And that's what the Higher Purpose Project is too. It's the same message. And it's to empower people to get outside of the system, to be in control of their lives, to have a positive impact in their community, to see other people as an extension of themselves. And
so what is it logistically then? So I think people get the idea of what it is and what you're trying to inspire now. So what is it logistically? What's going on, and when is it happening?
It's a 3 month, just so everyone knows, it's a 3-month experience, and it'll continue. We're gonna have a network that will always exist, a relationship that will always exist. But it's a 3-month experience where we basically have you confront your fears and help you build your visions in different ways. We help people confront limited perspectives. And I hate people that just, they just preach on and on and on. I want to learn through my own experiences. And so that's what I've really created with this program, is to have people to be able to apply certain concepts to their life, to be able to awaken that in them. So there's no separation between our leadership team and the people taking part. Everyone is one. There's no separation. And so the 3-month process, right now we're in a pilot group. So we've created a rather small group of conscious individuals to take part in this, to test it. Because I wanted to kind of go through a test run to make sure it was efficient as possible for a major launch in September. So we have a 30-person group that just started this week on the project, and it'll culminate with a 3-day experience in Big Bear Lake, California, where everyone that participates in it will be able to meet some of the strongest creators and facilitators in the world. So our leadership team, the people that we brought in to help facilitate people build their dreams, we have Pat Solomon. He's the director of Finding Joe. Basically, it's everything about the hero's journey. I love Joseph Campbell, so I reached out to Pat. I never met him before. And I was like, you need to be part of this project. You did an amazing film on Joseph Campbell. I want you to be there. And he's going to be there. Kyle Maynard's coming with me, quadruple amputee, summit of Kilimanjaro, understands who he is has an amazing mindset that'll help foster in other people. We're bringing Jordan Ramiro. He's 13 years old. At 13 years old, he summited Everest. He's the youngest person to summit the 7 summits. We're bringing Jordan Lejeune, founder of Higher Existence, and the co-founder of the Valhalla Movement with you, Mark. And Jordan is part of a young generation that's going to be the game changers. So, I view, Jordan and almost I view both you and Jordan and almost as just amazing leaders, man, that are just going to lead the entire movement. So we'll have Jordan. We'll have this kid, Jay Ellis, who's the star of the BET show, The Game. He's a real conscious actor. He's down to earth. He gets it on the highest level, and he'll be in attendance. We're going to have Taylor Fleski. He's the winner of Expedition Impossible. He's the founder of a group called Modern Gypsies, which is all about compassionate adventures and building amazing experiences within communities. So, and then we have 25 people taking part in this pilot program, 6 different countries, 13 different states. Truly amazing stories. We have a kid that rollerbladed from New York City to LA. We have a kid that enrolled in college at age 14 that will be graduating at age 18. Lives in Costa Rica currently. We have people from Brazil, Mexico, South America, Europe.
Sounds like I need to come down.
Man, and we're going to one of the most epic places ever. It's I spend a lot of my time building Mission Kilimanjaro in Big Bear Lake, California. What's so neat about it is you fly into LAX, you can go swimming, you can go surfing, swimming in the morning, and you can go skiing at night because you go up to 8,000 feet elevation, go into the San Bernardino Mountains, into a real conscious community that's real tight-knit, real down-to-earth. It's basically like the camp that you always wanted to go to as a kid. So we created just a really intimate, conscious experience. There's no separation, like I said, between us and the members, and we're going to help you build your vision. It doesn't matter about our self-actualization story, what we accomplished, what we've done. We're going to help you build yours, because that's basically the greatest gift that we can give you, and it's the greatest gift that you can give us, is by living a life that's aligned with your passions, where you basically go out and lead your life and help empower other people. It's a movement. So we're just really excited to bring this to life with Valhalla, and we'll be donating a portion of our proceeds to Valhalla, and we'll also be providing volunteers that will travel up to Montreal to help you guys bring your vision to fruition.
And amazing. Amazing. It sounds like it sounds like a lot of fun. I mean, it sounds like, something worth attending, just to go and meet these faces and places. But at the same time, the focus is, again, it's not about you guys. It's not about people coming to see you guys speak to hear about your story, but it's to hear about how this can actually transgress into them taking action.
Yeah, there's no ego involved in it, and that's always a shortcoming in so many platforms. It's people being like, okay, this is my self-actualization story. I'm going to pretend like I care about other people, but really all I'm doing is trying to promote my own stuff. Yeah. We don't care about that. We care about helping young people live authentic lives, because we know the greatest high that we get in this life is seeing people bring their visions to reality, and then bringing other people into our visions.
And at the end of the day, that is the best way to promote your own stuff. Take it from me, as a marketing graduate, which means nothing, but as somebody who's been practicing marketing for a long time, the number one way to promote your own stuff is to promote other people's stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's to promote the success of other people, because then Absolutely. You're surrounding yourself with successful people, and those successful people will come back and help you, and then maybe one day you launch a Kickstarter and you need 10 grand, and those people are going to be the ones that are going to share it and help spread it, and that's how I see it. That's how I'm living it.
If you have a community of people that see no limitation in life, are not afraid of anything, just imagine, and you're willing to help those people when they need it, and they'll help you when you need it. There's nothing you can't accomplish. I mean, everything in my life has been really the result of someone making me aware of an opportunity or providing me with a resource when I needed it. You know, we had with Mission Kilimanjaro, we had so many people that helped make it a reality. We had Ted Leonsis of the Washington Wizards that donated $10,000 to make the project a reality. We had a Prancer Keeler in Brazil that we never met before that donated $10,000 to help us towards our goal. You know, and the resource always becomes available, and it's through letting go of ego that you create the opening for things to happen. So if you're egoic, you're just going to limit your own progress, and you're gonna create your own hell here on Earth. So I would.
It's amazing that you say that because I talked with Phil. My first podcast was with Phil. Now I did this Hero Journey podcast with you, and my next podcast is with Jordan actually. And it's going to be about the ego and all that stuff. So, I mean, anyone who wants to check that out, obviously, stay tuned and you check out that next podcast that's coming your way. But at the same time, I'm going to put a link to all the stuff, more information that people can get. Where can they find this? I mean, I have the link and I will put it in the description. But where can they get more information on the Higher Purpose Project or about things that you're doing?
Right now, what we've done, we've created a pilot group. So we kind of kept it under wraps for the most part for a large-scale launch in September. But if you go to my website, athleticcapital.com, we have a link for the pilot program that basically spells out the program, and we've incorporated some visuals so you have a better understanding of how the process will operate. And over these next few months, we'll be taking our crew out to Big Bear in May. We'll develop some really powerful visuals, and we'll use the testimonies of the people that have gone on the journey with us to sell the project. And our goal isn't focused on money; it's focused on creating people that can build their lives. Because really, what we need people that are willing to be leaders in our current society, and we're willing to do whatever it takes to make that happen.
Amazing. All right, so athleticcapital.com for those who didn't hear that, and
there's a lot of resources on there too. I'll shoot you, Mark. I'll shoot you a link for the Hero's Journey. That I wrote about, and I also I would recommend to people. I do this thing on a daily basis. When I come into a serendipitous experience, I record it. My perception going into an experience, and then my reality, and so. Whenever I feel the world is not working into my favor and I don't know what's going to happen, I just look back on all these things that I've, encountered, like Steve Jobs talks about. And, it further illuminates my path. And I'm like, everything's going to work out. It's going to be great.
Absolutely. That's great. I mean, just keep at it, man. Keep at it.
Yeah.
And
thanks for the time, Mark. I really, really appreciate it, man.
Thank you. I mean, you're the guest on my podcast. So I should be thanking you for the time because I know you're a busy man yourself. So anyway, so for everyone listening, make sure to thumbs this up. Make sure to go and rate it on iTunes or wherever it is. Share it with some friends. I'm sure this information might be valuable to them potentially. And be sure to come back next week. Like I said, going to have Jordan on the podcast. So anyway, thanks a lot, Dan, and talk to you soon.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Did you enjoy this podcast? Be sure to share it on Facebook, Twitter, or whatever other social network you enjoy. And don't forget to subscribe. Also, be sure to rate this on iTunes. Rate it. Rate it now. Thanks for listening. And remember, until next time, fellow superheroes, through intent, you are the architects of the universe.